Sarah Thompson stepped off the transport truck and onto the sandy ground of the SEAL training base, the sun beating down on her shoulders. She had been here before, but each time she returned, the atmosphere never failed to make her heart beat faster. The base was alive with activity, recruits running drills, instructors barking orders, and the low hum of engines in the distance. Everything felt intense, disciplined, and yet chaotic at the same time. She straightened her uniform, adjusted her gear, and took a deep breath. This was not just another training day. It was a chance to prove herself again. The rookies were already there, a cluster of young men with bright eyes and nervous energy, waiting for the new arrivals. They noticed Sarah almost immediately. Whispers began to spread like wildfire. "She's a woman," one rookie muttered, barely hiding a smirk. Another nudged his friend and added, "I wonder if she can even keep up." A few of them laughed quietly, thinking they were clever. Sarah didn't pay attention to the whispers. She had faced skepticism before, and she knew better than to let it affect her focus. She had learned early in her career that respect was earned through action, not words. Walking through the formation, Sarah could feel the eyes on her. Some looked curious, some doubtful, and some openly mocking. She noticed a group of rookies exchanging glances and quietly making jokes under their breath. One of them even raised an eyebrow as if questioning whether she belonged here. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but inside, she felt a familiar spark of determination. These moments were opportunities, moments to show that judgment based on appearance or gender was meaningless here. As she joined the line of officers, Sarah took a moment to observe the rookies. They were young, energetic, and brimming with confidence, but inexperienced. Most of them had never faced the intensity of SEAL training or real missions. Their bravado was obvious, but it was also fragile. They were trying to project toughness, but their nerves betrayed them. Sarah recognized that energy. She had been there once, too. She remembered the first time she had arrived at a SEAL base, feeling the same tension, the same mix of fear and excitement. The morning briefing began, and instructors started outlining the day's schedule. Push-ups, swimming drills, obstacle courses, everything designed to test strength, endurance, and mental toughness. Sarah listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She knew that rookies often underestimated women, especially those who appeared calm and composed. They assumed softness where there was none. That assumption would soon be their first mistake. During the first few drills, Sarah moved with the same precision and energy as any seasoned SEAL. Her movements were efficient, controlled, and full of quiet power. She ran alongside the rookies, climbed the ropes faster than most expected, and completed the swimming laps with smooth, effortless strokes. The rookies began to notice, some shooting surprised glances at her as she passed by. They whispered to each other, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. One of them muttered, "She's good, really good." Despite her performance, Sarah remained focused on her own goals. She wasn't here to impress anyone with words or gestures. She was here to prove her abilities through action, silently setting an example. She knew that respect on this base came from competence and results, not jokes or appearances. As the day progressed, small incidents started to highlight the rookies' underestimation. A few of them tried to show off, challenging her during drills, hoping to embarrass her. Sarah met each challenge with calm skill, never overreacting, never losing her composure. She moved past each attempt with quiet efficiency, leaving the rookies both frustrated and increasingly aware of her skill. Their laughter and whispers began to fade, replaced by cautious respect, or at least, a hesitant acknowledgement of her presence. By mid-morning, Sarah had already begun leaving an impression, though she remained calm and understated. Her presence alone was causing the rookies to reevaluate their assumptions. She wasn't loud or boastful, but her confidence and competence were undeniable. She had a way of commanding attention without speaking, a presence that demanded focus. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Sarah took a moment to observe the base again, watching the rookies struggling through their drills, some failing, some succeeding. She understood that this was part of their growth, part of the process, and she realized that she had her own role to play, not just completing her drills, but showing by example what it meant to be a SEAL. She had been underestimated before, and she knew that she had to earn respect silently, through skill, determination, and quiet confidence. By the time the morning session ended, it was clear that Sarah had already made her mark. The rookies had begun to pay attention, and some even began to move more cautiously, realizing that she was no ordinary officer. They hadn't yet seen the full extent of her experience, and they had no idea about the story behind her unit tattoo. But that moment of arrival, that first impression, had already set the stage. Sarah Thompson had stepped onto the base not just as a lieutenant, but as a force to be reckoned with, ready to show that underestimating her would be their first mistake. The day had only just begun, and the rookies were already buzzing with excitement and nerves. They had seen Lieutenant Sarah Thompson in action during the morning drills, and though some were impressed, others were still clinging to their initial assumptions. A group of them huddled together, whispering and smirking, clearly plotting to have a little fun at her expense. Started with a joke. One of the rookies, trying to sound confident, stepped forward and asked, loud enough for the nearby group to hear, "So, what's your rank, Lieutenant?" He said it with an exaggerated smirk, as if he were expecting her to slip up or stumble over her words. Some of the other rookies snickered quietly, nudging each other to see what she would do. Sarah looked at him calmly, her expression neutral, almost unreadable. There was no hint of anger or amusement, just steady, unwavering focus. She knew exactly what was happening. The rookies were testing her. They were trying to see if she would react, if she would get flustered, if she was truly a SEAL or just another officer who looked the part. She didn't let it faze her. "I'm Lieutenant Thompson," she said simply, her voice clear and steady. There was no hesitation, no nervous laugh, no attempt to be friendly, just a statement of fact. Her confidence in those few words was enough to make the rookie's smirk falter slightly. It wasn't what he expected. He had been anticipating a moment of weakness, but there wasn't one. The rookies exchanged glances, their whispers growing quieter. Some of them were starting to realize that this woman was different. She carried herself with the kind of authority that wasn't given by a title, it was earned. But their curiosity hadn't fully faded. They still wanted to see if they could push her boundaries, if they could catch a glimpse of vulnerability. Throughout the morning exercises, they continued their little games. A few would intentionally lag behind during a drill, hoping she would react impatiently. Others would throw casual remarks under their breath, testing whether she would respond. But Sarah handled it all with calm precision. When a rookie fell behind, she didn't scold him. When a joke was made, she didn't laugh or show irritation. She simply continued with her drills, moving efficiently, completing every task with skill that matched even the most seasoned SEALs on the base. By mid-morning, the dynamics were already shifting. Those same rookies who had laughed and whispered were now keeping a cautious distance. They couldn't deny what they were seeing. Sarah wasn't just competent. She was exceptional. She moved with a confidence and precision that spoke louder than words. She executed every exercise flawlessly, whether it was climbing ropes, navigating obstacles, or swimming laps. Every motion was smooth, purposeful, and controlled. One rookie, trying to make a final attempt at humor, muttered under his breath, "Bet she's just lucky, not really that strong." Sarah heard it, of course, but she didn't react. She didn't need to. Her actions were already answering that unspoken challenge. When it was time for the next drill, she completed it faster, cleaner, and more efficiently than anyone else, leaving no room for doubt. The rookies were starting to feel that familiar sting of humility, the realization that underestimating her had been a mistake. Lunch brought a brief pause in the physical activity, but the tension and curiosity lingered. The rookies gathered in small groups, still whispering, still stealing glances at Sarah. They talked about her performance, the way she had handled the drills, and the quiet authority she carried. Some of them admitted quietly to each other that they had judged her too quickly. The jokes they had made earlier now seemed childish and insignificant in comparison to the display of skill and control they had just witnessed. Sarah, meanwhile, ate quietly on her own, observing the rookies with a calm eye. She knew that the day was far from over and that their real test was yet to come. The joke about her rank had been a small challenge, but it had revealed a lot. About the rookies, about their assumptions, and about how easily people could be misled by appearances. She understood that this was their learning curve as well, and she silently prepared for the moments ahead when her true experience would leave an even bigger impression. As the afternoon drills approached, the rookies felt a mixture of nervousness and respect. They no longer whispered jokes about her rank, at least not audibly. Instead, they watched her carefully, trying to gauge her limits, trying to understand her strength. The small joke in the morning had set off a chain reaction. It had started with skepticism and humor, but it was turning into awareness and, slowly, admiration. Sarah's presence was changing the tone on the base. The rookies were learning, whether they wanted to admit it or not, that rank or appearance meant very little compared to skill, focus, and determination. The joke they had made in the morning was harmless enough, but it had already begun to teach them a subtle, important lesson. That underestimating someone could be the first step toward a hard-earned lesson in humility. By the end of the day, the memory of that morning joke lingered in the rookies' minds. What had begun as a casual attempt at humor had instead turned into a profound moment of realization. They had laughed, yes, but they had also begun to understand that Sarah Thompson was someone who demanded respect. Not because she said so, but because every action she took demonstrated her worth. The joke had backfired on them in the best possible way. As the day continued, Sarah Thompson became the center of quiet attention among the rookies. They had seen her handle the morning drills with precision, and the joke about her rank had already begun to fade from their minds. Now they were starting to notice something more subtle, her presence. There was a calm authority about her, a way she moved and carried herself that made everyone around her instinctively pay attention. It wasn't loud or aggressive. It was quiet, deliberate, and unmistakably confident. During one of the afternoon exercises, the group was tasked with a grueling obstacle course. Ropes, walls, and balance beams tested every bit of strength and endurance the rookies possessed. Sarah approached the first obstacle with the same calm determination she had displayed all morning. While some rookies hesitated, unsure if they could clear certain parts, Sarah moved forward without hesitation. Her steps were precise, her grip secure, and her movements smooth. She made climbing a high rope look effortless, even as others struggled to find their rhythm. The rookies couldn't help but watch. Some of them whispered to each other, unable to hide their surprise. "How is she doing that?" one muttered, eyes wide. "She's amazing. She's faster than I am," said another, shaking his head. Their earlier skepticism was slowly giving way to admiration, although none of them were ready to admit it out loud. Sarah didn't speak to them or try to prove anything with words. She knew that in a place like this, actions always carried more weight than talk. Every movement she made demonstrated skill, endurance, and discipline, and the rookies were being forced to reconsider the assumptions they had made in the morning. Those assumptions that she might be slower, weaker, or inexperienced were being shattered piece by piece. As she moved through the course, she noticed some of the rookies struggling, falling behind, or hesitating. Instead of criticizing them, Sarah simply continued at her own pace, setting a standard they could aspire to. Her calm focus made her seem untouchable, almost as if every challenge were meant for her to overcome effortlessly. Yet, she never flaunted her abilities. There was no arrogance, only quiet competence. That alone commanded respect, even from the rookies who had once laughed at her. During a break between exercises, some of the rookies tried to act casual, hoping to reestablish their confidence. A few nudged each other and whispered jokes, trying to appear as though they hadn't been impressed. But even in their attempts to recover, they couldn't hide the fact that they were watching Sarah carefully, studying her every move. They realized that she wasn't just completing the drills. She was excelling in a way that seemed natural, almost instinctive. One rookie, who had been one of the loudest in the morning, finally admitted, quietly to himself, "I think I underestimated her. She's not just a lieutenant. She's a SEAL in every sense of the word." The acknowledgement was personal, unspoken, but it reflected a shift that was happening across the group. Respect was replacing doubt, and curiosity was starting to take the place of mockery. Even the instructors couldn't help but notice. Sarah's discipline and efficiency in completing every task were impressive. She didn't require extra supervision, she followed instructions perfectly, and her ability to maintain focus under pressure made her stand out. The rookies were beginning to see what she had always known, that true SEALs are defined not by rank, gender, or age, but by action, skill, and mental toughness. Throughout the afternoon, the rookies began to test themselves more rigorously. Watching Sarah push them to try harder, climb higher, run faster, and think more strategically. In a strange way, her presence was inspiring them. She had become a benchmark, a silent challenge that demanded they improve themselves. They wanted to match her performance, and the process of observing her had begun to teach them lessons they hadn't expected to learn. Sarah herself remained focused on her own performance, never showing that she noticed the rookies' attention. She understood the psychology at play. People often underestimated others until they had to face them directly. By moving through each drill with quiet confidence, she was letting her abilities speak for themselves. The rookies were beginning to learn the first lesson she wanted them to understand. Respect comes from skill and consistency, not from assumptions or jokes. By the time the afternoon exercises ended, the transformation was clear. The rookies who had laughed at her that morning were no longer whispering jokes. Some even found themselves unconsciously imitating her technique, trying to match her efficiency and precision. Sarah had become a model without saying a single word, simply by performing her tasks with excellence and composure. That evening, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon and the base settled into quiet activity, the rookies reflected on the day. Their perception of Sarah Thompson had shifted dramatically. What began as skepticism, and even ridicule, had turned into genuine admiration. They now understood that she was more than her rank, more than a woman in a male-dominated field. She was a SEAL in every sense, a professional who commanded respect through her actions. The first part of their learning curve was complete. Sarah's calm authority, demonstrated skill, and quiet presence had already begun to reshape the rookies' minds. They were no longer dismissive or joking, they were paying attention, and they were beginning to recognize that the true measure of a person was revealed through action, not assumptions. By the end of part 3, Sarah had not only proven her abilities, but she had also planted the first seeds of understanding in the rookies' minds. That underestimating someone could be dangerous, and that true respect had to be earned, not given lightly. The stage was set for the next phase of the story, one that would further challenge their assumptions and leave an unforgettable impression. The afternoon sun beat down on the SEAL training grounds, casting long shadows across the sand and concrete obstacles. The rookies were exhausted, muscles aching from the rigorous drills, yet they pushed themselves harder, partly out of pride and partly out of curiosity. All eyes, knowingly or unknowingly, kept drifting toward Lieutenant Sarah Thompson. Her performance had already left an impression, and now, the rookies were quietly watching for the next sign of her skill. During one particularly challenging exercise, the group was required to navigate a complex obstacle course that tested balance, strength, and coordination all at once. High ropes swayed above their heads, narrow beams challenged their stability, and walls required both upper body strength and careful planning. Sarah approached the course with calm confidence, her movements smooth, precise, and efficient. The rookies struggled behind her, some falling, some hesitating, while she seemed to flow through each obstacle with a natural grace that made even the hardest elements look easy. Then it happened. In a moment that seemed completely ordinary, her sleeve caught on a rough edge of a climbing rope and rolled slightly higher than usual. The fabric shifted just enough to reveal a large, intricate tattoo on her forearm. It wasn't the kind of tattoo anyone would notice casually. It was detailed, symbolic, and unmistakably professional. The rookies, many of whom had been focused solely on her movements, froze in mid-step, suddenly aware of something they hadn't expected. Their initial reaction was confusion. Some of them blinked, trying to make sense of the design. Others nudged each other, whispering in disbelief. "Wait, isn't that the same symbol as Commander Daniel's unit?" One murmured, eyes wide. Another whispered back, barely able to contain his shock. It can't be. That's his tattoo. The room seemed to quiet, not because anyone said so, but because the rookies themselves had instinctively stopped, their attention fully captured. Sarah didn't notice, or at least didn't react to, the sudden shift in the rookie's behavior. She continued through the course with the same calm determination, unaware of the impact that a single glimpse of her tattoo was having. But for the rookies, everything changed in that moment. They realized they weren't just dealing with a competent officer. They were looking at someone who had shared experiences with the commander himself, someone who had operated at the highest levels of SEAL missions. The tattoo itself was striking. Bold lines and detailed shading formed the emblem of the commander's elite unit. It symbolized more than bravery. It represented experience, trust, and a history of missions few would ever understand. For the rookies, seeing it on Sarah's arm was shocking because it shattered every preconceived notion they had held about her. She wasn't just a lieutenant. She was a SEAL who had proven herself in ways that matched the commander's own distinguished record. Suddenly, the dynamics of the group shifted dramatically. The rookies who had joked and whispered earlier looked at her differently now. Their laughter had vanished, replaced by awe and a growing sense of respect. A few of them even stepped back instinctively, as if some invisible boundary had formed around her, an unspoken acknowledgement of her experience and authority. One rookie, who had been the loudest in the morning, whispered under his breath, almost to himself, I didn't know she was at that level." His voice trembled slightly, revealing a mix of disbelief and respect. Others nodded silently, unable to put their reactions into words. They were seeing a side of Sarah Thompson that wasn't taught in books or shown in drills, the side that carried the weight of real missions, real experience, and real danger. Even the instructors took notice. A few of them exchanged glances, recognizing the significance of the tattoo. They knew the history behind it, knew the challenges required to earn the emblem, and understood that anyone wearing it had proven themselves in the toughest environments imaginable. Sarah's casual appearance of calm had masked decades of training, skill, and courage, and now it was on full display, even if she herself remained unaware of the rookies' reactions. The rookies' minds raced. They recalled every drill Sarah had completed earlier, every move she had made, and suddenly everything clicked into place. Her effortless climbs, her perfect timing, her smooth coordination. All of it now made sense. She wasn't just skilled. She had been trained at the highest level, in missions that very few could imagine. The morning joke about her rank seemed almost childish now, a minor mistake compared to the reality they were facing. As Sarah finished the obstacle and moved to the next task, the rookies couldn't take their eyes off her. Some tried to focus on their own drills, but their minds kept drifting back to the tattoo. The realization was humbling. They had underestimated her completely. Every ounce of sarcasm, every smirk from the morning, had been misplaced. They were witnessing someone whose abilities were far beyond what they had imagined. Someone who could easily match the skills of the commander they all revered. By the time the exercise ended, the rookies were changed. The shock of seeing the tattoo, combined with everything they had observed throughout the day, had begun to reshape their understanding. They were learning a critical lesson about judgment, respect, and experience. Sarah Thompson was no longer just another officer to them. She had become a figure of authority and admiration, someone whose past and capabilities demanded recognition. That single, accidental reveal of her tattoo had done more than just impress the rookies. It had shattered their assumptions, changed their attitudes, and forced them to confront the fact that appearances, and even rank, could be deceiving. Respect had to be earned, and Sarah Thompson had just earned it in the most unmistakable way possible, with quiet strength and the story etched permanently on her arm. The moment Sarah Thompson's tattoo was revealed, the entire atmosphere on the training grounds shifted. What had started as a normal afternoon of drills turned into a quiet scene of astonishment and disbelief. The rookies could hardly process what they were seeing. That tattoo wasn't just decorative. It carried a history, a legacy, and a connection to someone they all respected deeply, their commander. Some of the rookies whispered to each other, their voices trembling with a mix of awe and confusion. That's Commander Daniel's unit emblem," one stammered, eyes wide. Another shook his head in disbelief, muttering, "How is that possible? She's served in the same missions." The realization slowly dawned on them that Sarah wasn't just a capable lieutenant. They were looking at someone whose experience directly mirrored the commander's own. Sarah, calm and focused, continued her drills, unaware of the ripples of shock she had sent through the rookies. She climbed over walls, balanced across beams, and executed complex maneuvers with flawless precision. Her movements were smooth, efficient, and confident. Yet, even without her knowing it, every step she took was a reminder to the rookies that she had been tested in ways far beyond what they could imagine. The rookies couldn't take their eyes off her. They replayed every moment from the morning and afternoon in their minds. The way she had run faster than anyone else, climbed higher than anyone expected, and executed every drill without hesitation. Each action now seemed part of a larger story, one that spoke of real missions, real danger, and real skill. The tattoo had become a symbol, a key that unlocked the truth of what Sarah had endured and accomplished. One rookie, who had been the loudest and most mocking earlier in the day, suddenly found himself frozen in place. He looked at Sarah with a mix of awe and fear, realizing how wrong he had been to underestimate her. He muttered under his breath, barely audible, I had no idea." Another rookie nodded silently, swallowing hard, as if the words caught in his throat. The room, once full of chatter and laughter, now felt heavy with respect and recognition. Sarah's presence, already commanding, had become even more impactful because of the tattoo. It wasn't just the symbol itself. It was what it represented. Experience, trust, courage, and the kind of training that very few SEALs had ever completed. The rookies began to understand that this was someone who had been in the same missions as their commander, someone who had earned her place through action, not just rank. The weight of that understanding settled on them, almost like a physical pressure, making them aware of how much they had misjudged her. Even the instructors noticed the change. They exchanged subtle glances, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. They knew the significance of the emblem, knew the rigorous missions it represented, and understood that anyone bearing that tattoo had proven themselves in ways few others could. Sarah's calm demeanor, combined with this visible proof of her experience, made her authority undeniable. The rookies weren't just impressed, they were humbled. As Sarah moved on to the next exercise, some of the rookies tried to regain their composure. They straightened their postures, adjusted their gear, and attempted to focus on their own drills. But their eyes kept returning to her. They studied her every movement, every decision, and every subtle gesture. For them, the day had become less about completing exercises and more about understanding the woman who had silently outperformed them all and carried the mark of elite experience on her arm. The realization hit particularly hard when they considered what the tattoo symbolized. It wasn't just a mark of bravery, it was a mark of trust. Commander Daniels had only ever associated that emblem with SEALs who had proven themselves under the most extreme conditions. To see it on Sarah's arm was to see the tangible proof of her courage, skill, and commitment. They began to understand that her quiet confidence, her flawless execution of every drill, and her calm demeanor were all grounded in real experience. A few rookies whispered to each other, trying to process the sudden shift in their understanding. We laughed at her this morning," one admitted, voice low. "We thought she couldn't keep up." Another shook his head, the disbelief clear in his expression. "She's not just keeping up. She's leading by example. She's incredible." Their previous arrogance had been replaced by respect, and their nerves now carried a mix of admiration and intimidation. By the time the exercise ended, the impact of the tattoo and everything they had witnessed that day had settled in fully. The rookies no longer saw Sarah Thompson as just another officer. They saw her as a seasoned SEAL, someone whose abilities matched the highest standards of their commander. Their perspective had changed completely. The morning's jokes and smirks seemed childish, almost embarrassing in hindsight. They had underestimated her, and now they knew the cost of that misjudgment, humility, and newfound respect. Sarah's quiet skill, coupled with the symbolic power of her tattoo, had done more than impress the rookies. It had taught them an important lesson. Underestimating someone based on rank, appearance, or gender was dangerous. True respect wasn't given lightly. It was earned through experience, action, and unwavering competence. And in that moment, the rookies recognized that Sarah Thompson had earned it fully. By the end of the day, the base felt different. The energy among the rookies was no longer playful or mocking. It had shifted to careful observation, silent admiration, and a deep understanding that they were in the presence of someone exceptional. The tattoo had revealed more than her past. It had revealed her authority, her skill, and the standards she lived by. For the rookies, that moment would stay with them long after the drills were over, a lesson in humility, respect, and the quiet power of true experience. The afternoon exercises had ended, but the rookies couldn't stop thinking about what they had seen. Sarah Thompson had moved through every obstacle with precision, strength, and calmness that made even the most experienced among them pause and take notice. Her tattoo had revealed a level of experience none of them had expected, and by now the impact was settling deep in their minds. Respect was no longer optional, it had become inevitable. The rookies who had once whispered jokes and mocked her earlier in the day now found themselves observing her in silence. Even when she stood quietly, waiting for the next instructions, her presence commanded attention. There was no need for words or displays of authority. The combination of her past accomplishments, skill, and calm confidence was enough to make them rethink every assumption they had held. During the next drill, a simulated rescue exercise, the rookies were tasked with maneuvering through a complex scenario designed to test teamwork, communication, and problem-solving under pressure. At first, they moved with hesitation, unsure how to coordinate, still trying to reconcile the morning's confidence with the afternoon's revelations. But Sarah stepped forward, not with commands, but with quiet efficiency. She approached the exercise systematically, showing how to analyze the situation quickly, move strategically, and make decisions under pressure. Every step she took demonstrated not just skill but leadership. She didn't shout instructions or belittle the rookies for mistakes. Instead, she led by example, showing the right way through her actions. The rookies began to follow her, naturally adjusting their movements based on her cues. They weren't told to respect her. They simply did, because she had proven herself in ways that words could never capture. One rookie, who had been particularly skeptical that morning, found himself thinking in awe, "She's not just competent. She's teaching us without even saying it." Every time he looked at her, he noticed subtle details. How she calculated her movements, how she stayed calm under pressure, and how her body moved with confidence and precision. For the first time, he realized that true leadership didn't need loud words or displays of authority. It was shown through action, consistency, and skill. Even the rookies who had initially mocked her began to mimic her techniques. They noticed how she positioned her body during climbs, how she timed her movements during the obstacle course, and how she remained unshakable even when tasks became difficult. It was almost instinctive. They copied her approach without even realizing it. Sarah wasn't trying to teach them in the traditional sense, but her example was more powerful than any instruction. The subtle shift in their behavior was noticeable to everyone on the base. Instructors exchanged looks, seeing the transformation taking place. The rookies' earlier arrogance had melted into a mixture of admiration, respect, and a quiet determination to improve. They were beginning to understand that Sarah Thompson wasn't just a lieutenant. They were seeing a SEAL who had earned her position through action, courage, and experience. Her authority was undeniable, not because of rank, but because of the example she set. As the day went on, the exercises became more intense. The rookies faced new challenges that tested endurance, teamwork, and mental toughness. Sarah continued to excel, moving through the exercises with focus and composure, never showing frustration or impatience. Her presence inspired the rookies to push themselves harder. They realized that she wasn't just participating. She was setting the standard, showing them what it meant to be disciplined, strategic, and relentless. By the time the drills concluded, the rookies' mindset had completely shifted. The group that had started the day with laughter, teasing, and jokes now moved with seriousness and attention. They observed, followed, and learned, silently acknowledging that Sarah Thompson had become their benchmark. The lessons she taught were unspoken but deeply understood. Respect is earned, authority is demonstrated, and true leadership is shown through consistent action under pressure. Even during brief breaks, the rookies instinctively sought her example. They noticed how she rested without losing focus, how she adjusted her gear efficiently, and how she prepared for each new task with deliberate calmness. Her quiet efficiency became a model for their own behavior. Every action they took was subtly influenced by her presence, and even without instructions, they were learning from her at every moment. By evening, the rookies reflected on the day's events. They thought about the morning's jokes, the surprising reveal of the tattoo, and Sarah's flawless performance in the exercises. What had started as skepticism had transformed into understanding and admiration. They realized that she had shown them a lesson far greater than any drill could teach. That respect is earned through ability, composure, and integrity, not through rank or appearance. Sarah, meanwhile, remained unaware of the full impact she had made. She continued her drills and preparations with the same focus and discipline as always. For her, it wasn't about proving herself. It was about performing her duties to the highest standard. Yet the rookies had already internalized the lesson she was demonstrating. They were learning, adapting, and growing under her silent guidance. By the end of the day, the shift was complete. The rookies were no longer dismissive, mocking, or skeptical. They had begun to recognize Sarah Thompson as a true SEAL and a leader. She had earned their respect not by demanding it, but by showing them through action what it truly meant to serve with skill, courage, and integrity. In every move, every decision, and every gesture, Sarah had quietly transformed the rookies' understanding of respect, leadership, and excellence. As the afternoon wore on, the sun cast long shadows across the training grounds, and the day's drills were reaching their most challenging point. The rookies were exhausted, sweat dripping down their faces, muscles aching from the relentless exercises. Yet their focus remained sharp. Every movement, every decision mattered. Among them, Lieutenant Sarah Thompson continued to move with calm precision, completing each task flawlessly, as if fatigue did not exist. What the rookies didn't notice at first, however, was that someone had been watching closely, Commander Daniels himself. He had arrived on the grounds quietly, observing the exercises from a distance. His reputation was legendary, and he had a sharp eye for talent and skill. He noticed Sarah immediately, not because of her uniform or rank, but because of the way she moved, the calm authority in her presence, and the subtle confidence that radiated from her every action. The commander's attention was piqued, as he had rarely seen anyone on the base exhibit such controlled skill combined with quiet leadership. The rookies were still processing the shock from the morning joke, the tattoo reveal, and Sarah's flawless execution of the drills. But when they noticed Commander Daniels standing near the edge of the training area, their attention shifted instantly. They straightened instinctively, some of them holding their positions as if aware that someone of his stature was observing them. The energy on the grounds changed. The tension became palpable, not from fear, but from anticipation. Sarah moved through a particularly difficult obstacle, a combination of ropes, walls, and balance beams designed to test endurance, strength, and coordination simultaneously. Each motion she made was fluid, deliberate, and precise. When she climbed a rope and swung effortlessly to the next platform, even the rookies' jaws dropped slightly. Their earlier admiration for her abilities deepened now that they saw their commander watching too. Commander Daniels' eyes narrowed slightly, studying her movements carefully. He had heard the murmurs from the rookies earlier in the day, seen the subtle reactions to her tattoo, and observed how she had led by example without saying a word. Now, as he watched her navigate the obstacles, a small nod of recognition formed on his face. It wasn't an obvious gesture. It was quiet, almost imperceptible, but to the rookies who were watching closely, it was enough to send a clear message. This was someone to be taken seriously. The rookies, seeing the commander's subtle acknowledgement, could hardly contain their shock. Some exchanged glances, whispering to each other, "Did you see that? He's nodding at her. That means something huge." They realized that Commander Daniels didn't give recognition lightly. Every nod, every gesture from him carried weight, and it was rare for anyone to earn even a quiet sign of approval. For the rookies, the combination of Sarah's flawless performance and the commander's acknowledgement was almost overwhelming. As Sarah finished the obstacle course and moved on to the next challenge, she still remained unaware of the full attention she had drawn. She focused entirely on the drills, on executing every task with precision, and on maintaining her own discipline. But the rookies noticed every subtle reaction from the commander. They had never seen him respond in this way before. His small nod communicated a level of respect that words could not, and they understood immediately that Sarah Thompson had achieved something remarkable. A few rookies, who had been mocking her just hours earlier, now looked at her in awe. One muttered quietly, She's not just good. She's at the commander's level." Another added under his breath, "I think he's acknowledging her experience. That tattoo wasn't a joke. It really meant something." The rookies began to understand the full story behind the tattoo, her calm demeanor, and her flawless skill. They realized that Sarah had earned a place of authority through action and experience, and now even the most powerful figure on the base had recognized it. The remainder of the exercises proceeded under this new, unspoken understanding. The rookies were more focused, more disciplined, and more eager to observe and learn. They followed Sarah's example more closely than before, mimicking her technique, her timing, and even her calm approach to pressure. Commander Daniels watched the group, his expression approving as he saw the shift in the rookies' attitudes. Sarah had done more than complete her drills. She had influenced the entire group without giving a single command, simply through her skill, composure, and quiet authority. During a brief pause, Commander Daniels approached Sarah, walking with the measured pace of someone who commanded respect naturally. The rookies instinctively stepped back, giving him and Sarah space. Without a word, he gave her a subtle nod, almost a small smile playing on the corner of his mouth. That tiny gesture spoke volumes. To the rookies, it was a signal that the woman they had underestimated was now fully recognized and respected by one of the most formidable leaders in the SEALs. The rookies' reactions ranged from silent awe to barely contained excitement. They could hardly believe what they had witnessed. A morning of jokes and skepticism had transformed into an afternoon of respect, recognition, and learning. Sarah Thompson had shown them what true skill, leadership, and courage looked like, and Commander Daniels' acknowledgement cemented it. Their perception of her had completely changed. They were no longer rookies mocking a female officer. They were students witnessing mastery. By the end of the day, the transformation was complete. Sarah's calm skill, experience, and the commander's subtle recognition had combined to leave a lasting impression. The rookies understood a powerful lesson. Authority and respect are not given lightly, and true competence is always recognized, whether quietly or publicly. Sarah Thompson had earned both, and the rookies now knew that underestimating her would have been a grave mistake. The day closed with a sense of quiet accomplishment. The rookies, though physically exhausted, were mentally energized and inspired. Sarah, unaware of the full extent of her influence, continued her routine with the same calm precision that had defined her entire day. But the impact she had made, amplified by Commander Daniels' silent nod, would stay with the rookies forever. They had seen a true SEAL in action, witnessed leadership without arrogance, and learned that respect comes from skill, experience, and quiet authority. The sun had started to dip low in the sky, casting a warm orange glow over the SEAL training base. The day's drills were finally over, and the rookies were exhausted, muscles sore, clothes drenched in sweat, and faces streaked with dirt. Yet, despite their physical fatigue, their minds were racing. The events of the day had left an impression they would never forget. The morning had begun with laughter and skepticism, but by evening, the entire atmosphere had shifted. What the rookies had witnessed was far more than physical skill. It was a lesson in respect, experience, and quiet authority. Sarah Thompson moved through the final cool-down exercises with her usual calm and efficiency. To her, it was just another part of the routine. She stretched, adjusted her gear, and observed the rookies completing their own cooldowns, making sure they finished safely and correctly. Yet even in her quiet focus, the rookies couldn't help but notice the authority she carried. She wasn't loud or commanding. She simply exuded competence, confidence, and control. As the rookies gathered together for a debrief, the mood was different from that morning. The whispered jokes and mocking smiles were gone, replaced by serious expressions and reflective glances. They spoke in low voices, recounting what they had observed. How Sarah had executed each drill with precision, how she had remained calm under pressure, and most strikingly, the tattoo that connected her to their revered commander. Every rookie seemed to understand that her authority was not something she demanded. It was something she had earned. One rookie, who had been the most outspoken and mocking at the start of the day, spoke quietly to a friend, almost as if saying it aloud would make it real. "I can't believe I doubted her. She's incredible. And that tattoo, it means everything." His friend nodded in agreement, whispering back, "Yeah, she's a SEAL through and through. And now I get why the commander respects her." Their words reflected a transformation happening across the group. The mockery had been replaced by admiration, the doubt replaced by respect, and the initial arrogance replaced by humility. Sarah, meanwhile, remained unaware of just how deeply she had influenced the rookies. To her, the day had been about completing the exercises and maintaining discipline. But the rookies were already absorbing lessons that no lecture or manual could have taught. They were learning about courage, resilience, leadership, and what it truly meant to earn respect. Every movement Sarah had made, every obstacle she had conquered, and every calm decision she had taken under pressure had left a mark on them. Commander Daniels, who had been observing the day's events from the sidelines, approached the group one last time. His subtle nods throughout the exercises had already spoken volumes, but now he addressed the rookies directly. Without pointing fingers or singling anyone out, he praised the day's work and reminded them that being a SEAL was about more than just physical ability. It was about integrity, discipline, and earning respect. The rookies listened intently, their earlier lessons reinforced by the commander's words. They knew that Sarah Thompson had embodied all of these qualities perfectly, and now they were seeing the standard they should aspire to. As the rookies packed up their gear, they couldn't stop glancing at Sarah. Some exchanged quiet glances with each other, sharing unspoken acknowledgments that they had underestimated her. One of them whispered, "I'll never doubt her again." Another added softly, "She's the real deal. Not just a lieutenant, but a true SEAL." Their transformation was complete. The woman they had once laughed at had become a role model, a standard of excellence, and a reminder that appearances could be deceiving. The tattoo, which had caused such shock and awe earlier in the day, remained a powerful symbol. It wasn't just ink on skin. It was a story of courage, experience, and connection to one of the most elite units in the SEALs. To the rookies, it represented everything they had just learned about what it meant to be a professional, disciplined, and skilled operator. The lessons from that tattoo, combined with Sarah's actions throughout the day, were far more impactful than any lecture could have been. By the time the sun had fully set and the training grounds grew quiet, the rookies were exhausted but transformed. They carried with them not just physical fatigue, but mental growth and a deeper understanding of what it meant to be a SEAL. The morning's jokes were a distant memory, replaced by respect, humility, and a recognition of excellence. Sarah Thompson had proven herself not only as a skilled operator but as a quiet, powerful leader whose actions spoke louder than words. As they left the base for the evening, the rookies reflected on the lessons they had learned. They understood now that judging someone by appearance, rank, or assumptions could lead to serious mistakes. Respect had to be earned, and it was clear that Sarah had earned it multiple times over. Her performance, her calm authority, and the symbolic tattoo connecting her to Commander Daniels' elite unit had shown them the true meaning of competence, courage, and leadership. That day ended with a lasting impact. The rookies would remember Sarah Thompson not just as a lieutenant, but as a true SEAL, a role model, and a teacher without words. The experience had left them inspired, humbled, and motivated to do better. Not just to match her skill, but to understand the deeper qualities that defined a true leader. In the quiet aftermath of the day, one thing was certain. The lesson of respect, earned through skill and experience, would stay with them forever.